I'm ready. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to call the meeting to order. Do we need to take roll?
Yes. Chair Super,
Here.
Commissioner Gall,
Here.
Commissioner Coig, Commissioner Lieberman,
I thought he was on here.
He is. He's just muted. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
All right.
All right, Commissioner Lieberman here, and Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Here.
Mr. Marinelli.
Present.
Roll call is complete.
Thank you. All right. I think we can proceed to item C, which is salute to the flag. Is everybody ready?
Yep.
All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Moving on, item D, approving the order of the agenda. Is that just for tonight's agenda, just for clarification?
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the order of tonight's agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I second it.
All right. Can we take do we need to take a vote?
Technically, yes. Just if we can make sure when we do like the motions and when people say, guys, I second stuff, just try to state your name just so, because obviously it's on Zoom and we can't really tell who's saying aye. So I'll take a roll call, of course.
Thank you.
Super.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Roll call is complete.
Thank you. Are there any blue folder items?
Not for this meeting. Yes, I do not have any blue folder items or any comments from the public.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so then we can move to the consent calendar. Item number F1, approval of the affidavit of posting for the Public Safety Commission special meeting of January 25, 2021. Is there a motion to approve that affidavit?
So moved.
And that's
Second. Lieberman.
Oh. All right. Did you get that, Officer Glenn?
Yes, and then I'll do a quick roll call. Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum.
Unmute. Alan.
Aye. Sorry.
And Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
The roll call is complete.
Item F2, approval of the following minutes for November 16, 2020, and I noted that they are included in the agenda packet for tonight. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from November 16 of 2020?
I'll make a motion.
I second the motion.
And that was Commissioner Marinelli making the motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and who seconded it?
Alan Kleinbaum, I second the motion.
Got it. Thank you. Can we Take a vote, please.
Yes, Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Your roll call is complete.
Thank you. All right, item number G, excluded consent calendar items. Are there any?
Not for this, no.
Okay. How about item H? Is there any public participation on non-agenda items?
There are no attendees for this meeting, and then there are no e-comments for this meeting from the public.
Okay, thank you. Are there any item I, are there any items continued from previous agendas?
I think Commissioner Kleinbaum had mentioned something about metrics last meeting, but I'll leave it to him to address that.
I don't have anything on my list here concerning that. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay, other than that, I don't think there is anything. Moving on to item J1, the committee reports. Is there anything from the commendation subcommittee?
I'm not necessarily on the committee, but I wanted to just bring up perhaps a motion. I'm not quite sure. Julian Stern had termed out a couple months ago, and he was never told, other than by Commissioner Gall, who happened to have sent him an email. It was never really recognized, but I'll say that Commissioner Stern had been on the commission for maybe 8 years, and I just feel he should be recognized at his service, at a minimum, a plaque specifically stating that he's given that amount of service as a public safety commissioner, and just to have him recognized, and as soon as we're able to again. But if we could just put that down as something to look to, hopefully sooner than later, we'll be back inside the city center, and we can have a small ceremony. There should be some others by that time. For now, I just wanted to lay that out there. So we have Stern, and I believe there may have been one other.
Marin,
Yes. Was it Brian?
Commissioner Marin.
Yeah. So is there any way to get in touch with him and perhaps do that for him as well?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion at a future date post-COVID that we have them in for a commendation. This is Commissioner Gall. Thank you, Commissioner Lieberman.
I second the motion.
Perfect. So roll call, Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Roll call is complete.
And just a point of clarification, I guess, if we want to have some physical item to present to them, is that something that needs to be like a referral to staff, or is that something, I don't know, how does that work logistically? If anyone knows.
I believe we just, it was the clerk Manzano had brought it in last time. I remember having received it from her directly, actually, at the office. So it might be something that she can process through the city to have done. Not quite sure. But we've done it many a time before, so there's got to be some sort of instrument to get it done.
Can I jump in for a minute and just say that I'm here and I look like it says I'm hard and super because I couldn't find my link and he was kind enough to send it to me. But I just want to let you guys all know that I am here.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for the levity, Commissioner Kuig.
Yeah,
Just
you know.
be sure to identify yourself when you talk, all right?
Exactly. I will do that.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something that we can look into in term with the clerk's office later. But certainly, I think that it's a worthwhile endeavor to thank people for their service to the city.
Sure.
Of course.
I could probably send an email over to Eleanor now. I don't know if she might even be here. Has she checked in?
She's not here. Representative of City Hall's here for her, but yeah, if you want to shoot her an email, I'm sure she
Yeah.
can get back to you.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent.
All right, thank you. Moving on, the Legislative Review Subcommittee, anything? All right, hearing nothing. Moving on to the Quarterly Report Subcommittee, anything to report? Okay, I'm going to move on, hearing nothing. The CERT Support and Promotion Subcommittee, anything to report?
Nothing. I just thought it'd be interesting to find out what CERT is doing during this time. Maybe that's for a future referral to staff, and we can invite them to a meeting and see if they're adding value or where they could add value. Thank you.
All right, and thank you for that, Commissioner Gall. And lastly, the Homeless Subcommittee, anything to report?
I'd like to be on that subcommittee if there's still room.
Sure.
I believe right now, I'm just thinking about, I guess I'm thinking about Brown Act issues. Is there a maximum of 3 subcommittee members? Does that, yeah.
We'll have to look into that and figure out exactly what the rules are in regards to the subcommittees. So we can hold that off. We can hold that off till next meeting and bring that up again once we find out more information, if that works for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Marinelli, of course, don't want to discourage you from jumping in. I just don't want to create a problem either. So let's figure out the best way to address that.
Sounds good to me.
Could probably bounce that right to Mike Webb. And he should be able to tell us. He's first in the Brown Act.
Right. Okay, how about item J2, discussion of recent fire events?
Good evening, everybody. Chief May back with you. Good to see everybody. Welcome all the commissioners back. I hope everybody's COVID was a time for growth and understanding. I'm going to attempt to share a presentation with you, if I'm allowed to. All right. Okay, everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So obviously the fire department, I haven't had a chance to speak with you all for about 8 months. So we've probably seen more growth in public safety in the last 8 months than we have in the previous 20 years of my employment. And I anticipate we continue to see tremendous growth over the continuing years, especially for the balance of this year. I'm excited to be back with all of you. And hopefully we can touch on some of the basic stuff we've gone through. But I apologize. I'm actually double billed tonight. So I'm actually on a grant writing workshop on another Zoom meeting, but I'm with you. So I'll be on for my very short portion, hopefully answer all your questions, and then resume my last class for my graduate degree in master's in public administration. So I apologize if I'm short. 2 other further points. I do hear a chirping in somebody's background mic. That indicates that somebody's smoke detector is on low battery and the battery needs to be changed. So
I will confess.
But I want to promote fire safety as representative of my department. And whoever needs to change the batteries in their smoke detector, please do so.
It's good to see you're always on alert. I like it. Thanks.
That's my first and foremost responsibility. And the second point I was talking about, and I'm sure we'd love to have a representative for them in a future meeting, but I know our CERT academies have been put on hold for the balance of the time that we've had COVID restrictions in place for the department. So I'm sure they're eager to get out with you. I know they initially wanted to play a very pivotal role in some of the programs that were going on in the city, but for the balance of CERT, we've kind of stopped that program. They've continued to meet as a group, but they'll be back with us shortly. All right, so fire department activities in the last month or so, we've responded to about 600 calls for services. 400 plus of those have been medical emergencies. To give you a guesstimate or just an anecdotal experience, probably 20 to 30% of those peaking within the last 2 weeks have been related to COVID. Shortness of breath, COVID symptoms, people in our community that are experiencing the disease. And that's definitely spiked in the last 2 to 3 weeks. We've responded to about 21 motor vehicle accidents, 2 building fires, 15 water rescues. I've selected 3 significant incidents in the past year to kind of share with you. The first and foremost is for those of you that live on the northern end of town. On December 4th, we responded to a dryer fire, which extended into the ceiling space of the laundromat there, right next to 7-Eleven, right there on, I believe it's Felton and Artesia. Some significant damage to that property, but it was up and running by the end of the day with some of the washers and dryers taken out of place. But that was a full first alarm response with not only our agency, but Manhattan Beach and Torrance assisting us in that. On January 11th, 2021, the police department ourselves responded to a vehicle overturned along the Esplanade about 4:30 in the morning. A vehicle at a very high rate of speed, anticipated in excess of anticipated potentially up to 100 miles an hour, was going down the 600 block of the Esplanade, hit a couple parked cars, and actually careened into the building, which for that block of the Esplanade meant it cleared probably 10 to 20 feet of street before it actually lodged in the building, damaging several cars in the way. Nobody injured in that. And the last most significant response is actually last week for us. We, in the mid-afternoon, received a report at 3:30 in the afternoon of a paddler attempting to make it back to shore due to some strong offshore winds. Our Harbor Patrol boat, lifeguard resources responded to the area off of Rossler Pool, which is that PV athletic club that sits down there by Rat Beach. Initial searches proved unsuccessful in locating the lost boat. There was extremely powerful offshore winds in the excess of 30 to 40 miles an hour. Lifeguards and us coordinated a search with the Coast Guard, we were unfortunately unsuccessful in locating that missing vessel at that time. So the person's still missing. The Coast Guard coordinated a significant search for over 48 hours looking for the missing mariner, but those were unsuccessful. So those are some of our most significant calls over the last month. Last little bit, I always leave you the fire safety tip. So we want to kind of reduce our risk to the community in terms of the exposure. Home heating equipment, specifically space heater, should be plugged directly into the wall. Do not use a extension cord to plug in that device. And make sure you're storing your ashes and having your chimney swept annually. Commissioners, that's all I have for you this evening. I apologize for being a bit brief. Hopefully I've touched on some of the more relevant things, especially the low battery and a smoke detector in one of your residences. But it's a pleasure to see you all again on the meeting. Does anybody have any questions regarding the fire department for me?
I do. I had a question.
Yes,
You have the
Commissioner.
number of calls that you had in the previous month. How does that compare to historically, like prior to COVID?
So that's a very interesting point. And I think the police department's probably on a similar call volume level. Our call volume for the year was within 100 calls for service of what it normally is. So I think we ran about 7,400 calls. Last year, our numbers before that year were 7,600 calls for a year. We saw an incredible decline during the first shutdown. So between March, April, and May, there was a significant reduction in our use of services. But following the opening of restrictions and bleeding into the end of the year, we saw significantly more usage of fire emergency services than we do typically. So we ended up kind of the same for the year, if that makes sense. Commissioners, thank you for your time. I look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item J3, discussion of recent events in the city
Really
prosecutor's
quick,
office.
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you really quick. I think you have to have
sorry.
a motion to close that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Let me do one thing at a time. Is there a motion to close item J2, discussion of recent fire events?
All so moved.
Second.
Motion.
Okay. Roll call, Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
And yes, roll call's complete.
Commissioner Coig, sorry. Aye.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I still look like Harden, but I don't.
Perfect, Commissioner Clegg. Perfect, roll call's complete.
All right, thank you. Moving to item J3, discussion of recent events in the city prosecutor's office.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe anyone from the city prosecutor's office is on this meeting. I talked to Joy Adequin earlier, and she said that there was someone who was supposed to be from Harbor Interfaith that was supposed to be a part of the meeting to kind of talk about the shelters, but we got mixed up with the links in the emails for the Zoom link, so that person is not here because we got a little mixed up. So hopefully next meeting, that person from Harbor Interfaith can join, but I do not see anyone from the city prosecutor's office on this meeting.
All right, so do we need to close that? Or did that ever really open? Probably not. Moving to item J4, a discussion of recent law enforcement events and a crime recap.
One moment. So I will touch on just kind of like more basic kind of things that we've been seeing, and then I have my lieutenant here who will touch on a little more of the serious things that we've been seeing in the news. So for myself, what I kind of wanted to touch on, not only do we see it in Redondo Beach, but we've seen a huge spread within Southern California, period, about catalytic converter thefts. I'm sure we've all known someone who's had their catalytic converter stolen maybe once, twice, 3 times. It's crazy. It's a huge thing right now, which a lot of thieves and criminals are catching on to, and it happens so fast. It happens within pretty much like a minute. How they go into the car, they jack it up really quick, they go into the car, saw it off, and they pretty much take off and turn in that scrap metal for a little bit of profit. And so we've been trying our best to put out like unmarked cars and do plain car details to try to catch some people. The hard part about it is, we can catch one crew one night and there's still 20 crews out there doing the same exact thing. So, we're trying our best to kind of react to this and be proactive in a sense. Past Saturday, we actually had a catalytic converter like etching event that we did within the police department. So we etched the Redondo Beach PD and the last 5 of the VIN, just in case we did pull over someone, because we've had officers out on patrol pull people over, and they see catalytic converters in the car, they see sawzalls and all that stuff, and so it kind of helps us identify these victims and try to create, these bigger cases for these individuals. And so pretty much, the best tips that we do have that we can offer is if you can, park your car in the garage or park your car hopefully in your driveway. It's really quick if they get to kind of go on the street and jack it up really fast. So if you can, park your car in the garage. If that's not an option, try to park it in like a well-lit area or somewhere that has like a higher volume of traffic, just to try to deter these people, because obviously it's in a quiet, dark area, it's a little more easy. But like I said, they do these within like a minute. So, we can try our best to be as preventative as possible. And a huge thing too is installing security cameras. And so I'll see a lot of us have Ring, Nest, or whatever the case may be. So if we do have security cameras, make sure they're on, make sure your car is in a place that that camera can capture the action being, taking place. And we actually have partnered in a sense with a few companies within the city. Cars, Automotive, and Mufflers was just at our event on Saturday, and they sell catalytic converter cages. And so it's like this big metal wire thing that wraps around all these multiple times, and they have shields or whatever the case may be. I think they said it's around like $400, but it's pretty worth it.
There's a lot of nice metals in those catalytic converters. Yeah. And they go for a pretty penny. So it's interesting what wire can do for you to protect your interests.
So that's also another option too that a lot of people don't know, because this is kind of popping up more and more as people get more aware of it, of what they can do. So they do have those cage options available. You can call like your local automotive shop or whoever do know, a mechanic or whatever the case may be, to see if they do sell those cages, because that, going underneath the car, they're looking for quick, easy, victims in a sense of a car. So they go under there and see this huge thing wrapped around in all these wires and all that stuff. It's a little more of a deterrent of like, do I really want to spend the time? Like now I'm going to spend 5 minutes as opposed to spending 1 minute. And so that's just another option. If you know anyone or friends or family or whatever the case may be, if they want that option as well, then at least we're giving you this information to kind of share it.
Is there a specific type or year car or brand of car? Are they looking at old ones, new ones, or?
A lot of times, a lot of them are a little older, and I'm not saying like older, it's like 90s, like they are like 2015, 2016. Like there's the newer cars that they're seeing, a lot of the catalytic converters are closer to the engine, so it's harder to get, but like we have like a lot of Priuses get stolen, Honda Elements, a lot of Fords, like trucks, pickup trucks, F-150s. Trying to think of other ones that we've kind of seen a lot. I've taken a few Honda Civics.
Yeah.
Forward, so yeah.
That is a good one. Okay.
Did they pawn it off to a variety of fence type people, or is there like a distribution flow to a larger group of people that do a lot more business fencing?
I'm not too sure. Yeah, I'm not too sure who kind of collects these kind of things, or, you know, if the people that they are taking it to even care as much as where they're getting them from, you know. Perfect. Oh my God, sorry. So that is that for kind of like basic prevention tips. If anyone has any questions.
I have a question. I was reading going through all those reports,
Yes.
and the crime recap, and I noticed that there was, I think, 3 or 4 stabbings that took place throughout the city of Redondo Beach, and I don't think I've ever seen that before on our committee crime report. So I was just wondering, do you have any indication or glean why there's such an increase of these violent crimes?
Yeah, like the one on Clark and the one on the bus, and then the carjacking. Can't be all the same person, but to what degree were they, you know, maybe non-residents or homeless or et cetera?
Darren, you want me to?
Yes, sir.
Right. I heard your question, but I'll just introduce myself. My name's Sean Freeman. I'm the lieutenant. I'm currently in charge of the community services unit. So I work with Darren. I also work with Sergeant Dyberg. So I've been at the police department since 1994. I recently to the community services unit. Before that, though, I worked around at least 12 years or so in investigations. I used to be the sergeant for investigations for years. I'm also in civilian assignment, also do the press information officer for the city of Redondo Beach. So I've been around. To answer your question, it's Susan, is it? I can't. Yeah, there it is. Oh, no, it came changed. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for changing my name, whoever did that.
I mean, we've had stabbings before in Redondo Beach. In fact, when I was the sergeant in investigations, I came to the commission meetings before to give updates on when we had homicides or we had stabbings and that kind of stuff. So we've had stabbings in Redondo Beach. I think what's different this time is that we've had kind of the multiple stabbings in a row, like what we've seen before. So we haven't seen like that. I'm not in investigations, you know, and so I don't know on all of them. I know maybe 1 or 2 of them, they're not from the area, but I don't know if they're homeless related so much as they're just people not from the area, but I don't know about if they're homeless. I know one of them wasn't homeless, but we did have the stabbings. And then also you probably saw there's a press release out there too on the homicide we had at the 2400 block of Marine at one of the hotels out there. So we had that, you know what I mean? And that's, you know, from all indications, it wasn't a random one, whereas, you know, you're staying there with your family and somebody came and somebody got shot. The victim and the suspect, you know, looks like apparently they probably knew each other, but that's as much as I can get into just as to where the investigation is at this time. But, you know, as far as an increase, it's an increase when you see it because there's 3 of them in a row or 2 of them in a row, like how we saw them. But over the years, we will get those stabbings. But yeah, it was different for us to have them so close to another like that. We've had carjackings in the past. Generally speaking, on a carjacking, it'll be with a gun or other type of force, pulling the person out of the car. Not usually will we see it with a stabbing like we saw the one there that happened in South Redondo Beach. So, and again, a lot of them, they're still, there's, I don't know how much there is out there in the public, for the press. I'm trying to remember now. Some of them are still under investigation, and there's parts of them that I know have not been released yet for reasons for the investigation.
Hey, Darren, can I share something real quick, please?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joe Hoffman. I'm the captain of the Special Operations Bureau. I know I've met most of you in one form or another, but one of the things that made me think about the crime trends and the stabbings is we don't normally have a lot of stabbings or a lot of violent crime in Redondo Beach, period. However, we're not immune to it. And we do have stabbings and we do have violent crime. And occasionally we have homicides. We had the homicide last Tuesday, but we had to sit down together and think about when the last homicide actually was in Redondo. They're very infrequent. And having 3 stabbings in a short time frame is uncharacteristic of the area. However, I read an article today. I can't remember if it was in the LA Times or where, but it was about LAPD's crime stats, current crime stats. And it said that overall in 2020, crime was down, but homicides and shootings were up. So I think it's interesting to note when you think about crime stats is not necessarily what has happened in Redondo Beach in the past week or the past month, but what are the crime trends in the area? What's going on in Los Angeles County? What's going on in the neighboring cities? Because I think, we're going to have a stabbing every now and then, but if we don't have any stabbings, that doesn't mean that we're all of a sudden immune to violent crime. We need to really pay attention to the big picture because law enforcement is truly a team sport, and we really have to work together to control every aspect of it. There's changes that are going on with COVID alone that's causing people to be released from jail, and there's more people on the street. And there's issues with people being prosecuted and the courts being backed up and zero bail and us being able to keep people in custody. And there are people that are out on parole or out on bail that are committing other crimes. LA County just recently elected a new district attorney. And despite everybody's individual feelings about the district attorney, there are challenges for law enforcement related to the way that certain crimes are being charged. And those are all factors that are going to be looked at as we consider our crime trends. So fortunately for us, the stabbings, the couple of the ones that you're referring to, the one, I believe it was Carnegie, and then the carjacking and the pursuit and all that stuff, we were able to catch both of them very quickly. And I think one of the advantages that we have in Redondo Beach is, no, we're not immune to violent crime, but when we have one, we pretty much drop everything and put every single resource we have on it. And 3 stabbings is alarming, especially, the people that are from out of state and this and that, and just kind of end up in Redondo Beach. It's like, there's a bigger story there that we need to focus on, but we also have to pay particular attention to the big picture and what's going on in the immediate surrounding area. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light for you on kind of the way I look at these things when they occur, as opposed to just looking at one specific incident and saying, what's the breakdown in Redondo Beach as to why this happened? Yes, we can always do better, but, how can we all work together to try to control these things?
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
I had a quick question. I had heard just residents talking about how there was another carjacking, I want to say like Inglewood and Rockefeller area at the end of November, but I haven't really been able to find any information on that. Is that something that happened, or is that just kind of like street rumor?
Doesn't ring a bell to me, Sean. I can't specifically recall any carjacking. You know what? They're probably referring to that stabbing incident. Yeah. Because that was on Carnegie, like maybe in like the 2600 block, which would have been, just a couple blocks west of Inglewood. Right. And that was a stabbing, and he did steal that car. And then we ended up being able to use some investigative resources that were immediately available to locate the suspect very quickly. And that's the only thing that I can think of. And that's in such close proximity to the geographical area that you're describing. I would imagine it's one and the same.
Right, and that goes back to the stabbings, the carjackings, is that you had uncharacteristically, you had 2 stabbings and, if you will, 2 carjackings that took place, but completely different suspects and motives, kind of on on the stabbings and the carjackings. But one happened in North Redondo, one happened in South Redondo. Yeah, as the captain said, uncharacteristic for our community. But the larger picture is we're part of LA County. Was there any other recent events?
I have another question for Ellie, for you guys regarding the homeless pallets. Have you noticed or seen, or what's been happening since they've been up and functioning? Has there been a trend in crime, or has there been any changes? Or
I can answer that. So yeah, again, I can tell you, Officer Turner, I'm assuming most of you might know Keith Turner or met him, right? He's been going out to the pallet housing. I know Officer Glenn's gone out there too. Sergeant Dyberg and I've been out there pretty much every week to just at least check in to see what's going on. And the answer to the big question is, has there been an increase in crime with the pallet housing? The answer is no. We've had really 3 service calls out to that area. One of them doesn't really even count, in my opinion, as far as being, because it wasn't even really related to the pallet housing. It was an employee there that called, and it was completely unrelated to the people living at the pallet housing. And then the other calls were basically, one was for somebody that was feeling suicidal, and so they needed to get him into treatment. And the other one was like a medical call. So 3 calls. We have not seen the calls of, lewd behavior or drunkenness or fights or thefts or that kind of stuff happening because of the pallet housing. We have not seen that at all. It's unfortunate Harbor Interface is not here, because I think they were going to talk about it. And, the way it's working now is we're fortunate with having Harbor Interfaith. They pretty much they know who in Redondo Beach is homeless and who would benefit from the pallet housing. And so they are out there in Redondo Beach and getting those people from Redondo Beach in that pallet housing. So the way I've been seeing it working, it's not like we're getting somebody from, Venice or Pasadena or whatever, and now they're shipped down here, if you will, and living in a pallet housing. It looks like everybody that's in that pallet housing is known to Harbor Interfaith, and they're from the Redondo Beach area. They're known transients, or homeless people in Redondo Beach, and they believe they would benefit from the pallet housing. That's what they have in there now. So in that respect, it's working.
thank you.
Can I update briefly about District 5? First of all, thank you for all your hard work, Redondo Police, 12, 13-hour days, and probably more than that. So thank you. Friday night, we had a little helicopter flyover, and was dealing with Lincoln School, and I think the janitor there got mistaken for somebody else, but Redondo really did use all resources to make sure that they made sure the person was not like a threat to the community. It was the helicopter was saying, please come out with your hands up. And I was worried that he was going to jump into my backyard. It was like a chase throughout the neighborhood, but it was just Lincoln School. And as you know, Lincoln School has had a couple of issues with, I read about the transient with a controlled substance, and then we know about the poor kid who overdosed there. So good that you care to kind of monitor that so seriously, because a lot of bad things unfortunately happened there. But the other thing I noticed is that somebody came to me and said, my son was beat up by your house or a couple houses down, and I reported it, and it's in the minutes. So sometimes the most mundane of things that are going on in the community, I appreciate you listening, but any feedback on the first one is appreciated. But yeah, it's been a rough month for the stabbings and stuff like that. We got to get better, but I guess, you just have to deal with it.
Commissioner Gall, as far as the issue of Lincoln School, I actually spoke with Tony Toronto from the school district today, because, you know, when we get a call like that where somebody thinks that there may be a burglary in progress at a school, we have a responsibility to deploy our resources in the most efficient manner possible to contain that location in the event that there is actually a crime occurring. However, in a case like this where it's a janitor, not only is it shocking for the janitor to have to go through that ordeal, it takes a lot of resources out of the field that can be doing other things. So I'm working with Mr. Toronto on developing a protocol where we're actually going to have the school district has a coordinator for all the custodial staff for all the schools. And in the event that we were to get a call that was after hours that involves, you know, classroom doors being open, you know, not something obvious like glass breaking, somebody's seen carrying out a computer, something like that, then we can actually, as the units are, we wouldn't delay the response, but as the units are responding, we could have the communications center attempt to make a phone call to the custodial coordinator and see if there's actually a janitor on the premises, which janitor it is, attempt to make contact, and hopefully, if that was the event, because this isn't the first time it's happened and it probably won't be the last, hopefully it would minimize the amount of time that we would have to commit resources to a false alarm. So that was noticed. I mean, especially, it's one thing to have all the Redondo units there, which is probably most of the units in the city, but then we also take the LA Sheriff's helicopter out of service for an undetermined amount of time, which one, again, it's alarming to the residents and it prevents the helicopter from doing other services in the county where it likely could be in the area of an actual crime. So we're trying to put some process into place to help minimize that in the future.
Thank you.
All right, is there anything else on this agenda item? If not, is there a motion to close item J4?
I make that motion.
I second the motion.
Let's get a roll call. Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Coig,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Your roll call is complete.
Okay, moving on to item J5, discussion of community policing events.
Officer Glenn again with the Redondo Beach Police Department. I am the community service officer for the city, and because of COVID, we are still very restricted and limited on what we can and can't do. Usually around this time, we're planning things like our skateboard competition or our surf competition or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, we cannot and will not, just due to safety issues and protocols and all that stuff because of COVID. However, like I said earlier, we did the catalytic converter etching event, which turned out pretty well, and people really liked it. And so that could be something that, you know, that we did that was very safe, limited our exposure or their exposure with us. So it ran really well. We're probably going to do that in the future. Maybe once a month, maybe once every other month or something along those lines. But we're still trying to be out there, be involved with the community, but trying to keep everyone safe.
Any questions about item J5?
I just have one question, Officer Glenn. I was wondering, are you guys still doing coffee with a cop, or is that on hold because of COVID too? Because I know that the coffee shops are still sort of open, or at least I guess now they're all going to be open.
Mm-hmm. So it's been on hold. We put it on hold for a while just because we don't want, even like our protocols and our restriction within our department as well, of trying to prevent the cross-contamination. So we're still trying to do that, and we don't think it's kind of like smart or beneficial in our sense to kind of put ourselves out there. And we do get a really good response within Coffee with the Cops. So, you know, is it fair to say, well, only 10 people can come because it's, you know, limited space within this coffee shop? And we've had coffee shops that are willing to do it or try to put together some kind of like outside patio, but then everything is just so like it's just can't be outside and all these things. And so we've kind of put a hold on that right now. We're working, I don't know if you guys know who Dinah is.
Yep.
I know, yes. So Dinah, she's working with us again, trying to figure out just different ways that we can go out. I know we've done a few Zoom meetings within Neighborhood Watch And so we might try to do that again, just so we can be out there and have people ask us questions and be available and be these resources. And at any time, if you do know anyone, or there are people within your communities who need help or have questions, you can always refer them to myself, and I can get them the proper help, or I can answer questions. I can, guide that onto just different units or different officers within our department. And so I don't want anyone to think because of COVID, we were very closed off to everyone. That's not the case. It's just tough to be out there. And I know people a lot of times won't take that extra step to put themselves out there to us. Without us, having these fun, cool events. And so if there is anyone or any question or whatever the case may be, you can always refer them to me, and I can try my best to get help, or try to answer questions like a copy of the cop setting, just myself.
The summer ice cream socials you had worked good with the kids, but it's kind of tough to do now. And you really can't tell everybody to bring their own coffee to the park. So good luck.
Yeah, it was tough for us to try to figure out, like, we kind of thought about, well, maybe if we do like Keurig, if we everyone just puts in like their little K-Pod and you do like a cup, it just gets so complicated, and we would hate for anything to happen, or, us be around someone, or, we don't know. There's so many discrepancies within the virus as well, like being asymptomatic, or, showing very mild symptoms, or people might think it's just allergies because of the wind, or, things like that. And so we just found it upon ourselves to try our best to, we miss being out there as well, but try our best to kind of abide by these rules and these orders, and just, keep ourselves and everyone else safe as well.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions on item A5? I guess I should ask, just in general, are there any e-comments from the public on item J5 or any of the prior items?
No, I've been keeping track of all that, and there have not been any e-comments within all the other items as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a motion to close item J5?
I make that.
Second the motion.
Roll call for closing J5. Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Koig,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Your roll call is complete.
All right, item J6, volunteers and policing report.
Also going again with Redondo Beach Police Department, our volunteers are still not working or not volunteering with us due to COVID-19. So there's nothing to report within our VIPs.
I have a question regarding, I'm not sure if this is the right form or whatever, but in terms of vaccinations, the rollout, you guys have been able to get your vaccinations, or where do you fall in that as a first responder?
We are in the second tier officially, which is tier 1 or 2B or whatever it is. But for our department, how we've been able to get the vaccinations is basically the fire departments or some other health agency is basically going to run out, or not. They have more vaccines than they do people to give it to, and they're just going to go to spoil. They've pretty much been calling us and saying, hey, do you have officers that want to get the vaccine? We are expecting our official shipment that's going to be given to us in February of this year. But as of right now, we have several officers that have gotten the vaccination. Through the process, I've said, hey, there's 10 spots open here. Do you have officers that want to come down here? And we're not alone. This, other Manhattan Beach, other police agencies are getting the same phone calls. They're going to go to waste anyways. We're the next tier to get it. So can you guys use it? That's how we're getting it. But officially, next month.
Thank you. Should be rolling it out as fast as they can. I don't understand the tier system, but that's just my personal opinion.
All right, any other questions on item J5? Actually, I'm sorry, we're on J6. All All right, hearing none, is there a motion to close item J6?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
And no public comments, I assume, Officer Glenn?
No public comments, no new comments. A roll call, Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Coig,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Your roll call is complete.
All right, moving to item K, member items and referrals to staff.
I don't have anything at this time.
All right, Commissioner Marinelli, anything?
Thank you for calling on me right now, and thank you for looking into what would be an availability to be on that subcommittee. I'll just roll with, if you've already got 3 people, that's cool. I also think that I'm happy that Officer Glenn was able to find time for us to meet. I think even though we're in a COVID-related situation, to have these meetings when we can schedule them is important, and especially with somebody from Harbor Interfaith addressing us in March, because then we'll be 3 months into a 6-month program, and it'll be important for us to get some feedback on how it's working with the pallet shelters. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you know, I suspect the answer is going to be that we can't go over 3, and we'll just, it's possible someone wants to swap out or whatever, but that's something we can address at our next meeting.
Do we know
Yeah.
who's on that committee, that subcommittee?
I believe it's myself, Commissioner Coig, and Commissioner Kleinbaum. Is that correct?
And I would be happy to defer to Commissioner Marinelli if he would like to be on that committee. My plate's full with other stuff and activities. So if we want to take care of that right now, I'm fine. I would back out and let him do it if you want to, Commissioner Marinelli.
I would very much like to do that, and thank you for the offer. It's a slower time for me at work right now, and you have some things on your plate. I think it works for me, if you're okay with it.
So moved by Commissioner Gall. Make a motion to switch.
I second that.
Roll call, Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Coig,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, that's great. Glad to have you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Gall, anything you want to raise? or
Good
discuss?
evening, Chair Super and staff and commissioners. I'll briefly ask CERT if they want to join one of our meetings to give an update in case they're doing anything that's unique. But I'm very happy with the service and the work that police and fire are doing. It's a really challenging job right now, and I heard about firefighter paramedics going to join all the healthcare workers at the hospital. It's amazing. I couldn't do it. So thank you very much, but that will be my only action item.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Gall. Commissioner Kleinbaum, anything you want to discuss?
Yes. Yeah, good evening. I'm looking here at the minutes from the previous meeting, and it said that I had inquired about metrics on pedestrian safety, and I don't know who's responsible for providing those. Who is that, and are they available?
So when you say you want metrics on public or pedestrian safety, what exactly is it that you want?
Any information related to incidents? I'm sure you keep records of incidents related to pedestrian safety. So pedestrians are injured by motor vehicles in the city. And do you have records to show what the patterns are? Is to stay about the same? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? If we don't know where we're at, how do we know if we need to improve on it?
Okay.
So
Maybe which streets or corners have received an upward trend of mayhem in the last 6 months, et cetera.
I can tell you one thing. I'm a cyclist and I'm out on the streets of Redondo Beach on my bicycle every other day. And I spend several hours a day all over Redondo Beach walking my dog. And there's a much larger number of pedestrians on our sidewalks and streets than ever before that I've ever noticed. And so, and the vehicles, I don't know if you have any records, but it's my belief that the speed of the vehicles and the adherence to traffic signs, the adherence to traffic signs has decreased and the motor vehicle speed has increased. And the number of pedestrians has increased. And that alone should be cause for some concern, but it would be nice to have some data to verify that.
So I hear the question, Officer Glenn, from the Commissioner. So I can check, because part of my lieutenant duties is I'm also in charge of the traffic division. So I'm glad she's asking the question as far as what metrics you're looking for. I don't know if we have data that would show, you know, the increase in cars or the increase in pedestrians on the roadway, other than anecdotal evidence of what you see, right? I mean, I could say the same thing, you know, during last year of April and May when COVID was out and nobody could go on vacation, whatever. Yeah, you saw a lot more people walking on the streets. So I don't know if we have data on that, but I can try and see if we can pull the data. I can get a hold of our crime analysis unit, maybe, or our records unit, try and pull how many traffic accidents we've had that have involved pedestrians and see if there's a increase or if it's the same from 2019 and 2018. Can do maybe a 3-year look back. So give me some time and we can definitely look at that. Is there anything more specific you're looking for other than you want to know how many like vehicle versus pedestrian accidents or vehicle versus bicycle accidents? Or
So I can't speak on behalf of, because I'm not everywhere at once, but just my own personal experience. For 10 years, I've been a walker every day on the streets of Redondo Beach. Okay. And I walk the streets with my dog, like in fear when I want to cross an intersection, because a car can be whipping around that corner. It doesn't matter if there's a traffic light or a stop sign, they may just ignore it. And many of them, they'll see a pedestrian, and in some cases they just ignore it, and it's just really rude, and it's just getting worse and worse. And it's because of like what's going on now. I don't want to get into the psychology of it, but I think the situation is worse. And then there's been, for me personally, the frequency of near misses increases with time, and other people may have the same concern, and with data you could validate it. And if you have a problem, maybe that's something we should try to do something about it. But if we don't have any data, we don't know where we stand.
right, no, and I understand it. So I mean, again, I can find the data on accidents of vehicles hitting pedestrians. We wouldn't have data on near misses.
No, of course not.
So we wouldn't have that, but I can try and get the data, of course, on the accidents of vehicle versus pedestrians. That's what you're looking for, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. Okay, we can ask and get that, you know, and you know, the traffics and the speeding and the tickets, you know, that's been a constant perennial. I mean, I've been here for years, and I've done neighborhood watch meetings when I first started, and that was always a concern. It's always will probably be a concern, unfortunately. So you know, it's a myriad of things. You know, again, not as many officers. You know, the traffic surveys that are done on certain streets, that officers can actually go out and enforce speed on certain streets because the traffic surveys haven't been done, because they haven't done. You know, so it's a whole myriad of problems there. As far as that, as people going through stop signs and speeding, that's a perennial problem that we've had for years here. But we can look at the data for the pedestrians and vehicle accidents.
Okay. And then just in general, well, pedestrian safety is always very important, but I think because of what's going on now, I believe, and we mentioned this before, that there are more pedestrians out there. And just the fact that there may be more pedestrians out there, maybe you could raise the priority of pedestrian safety.
Okay, no, I understand. I mean, obviously it's a priority, but I understand you're trying to raise a priority. And again, it's the resources and, trying to dedicate it all towards that thing, and then something else is suffering while we're doing that, if you will. But yeah, I mean, it's traffic is out there. We have 4 motor officers. So we're trying to increase our cadre of motor officers so we can have more enforcement, but that is always concern.
Let me jump in real quick. I don't know if everybody's heard of the Office of Traffic Safety Grant that we get through the state, which is for traffic enforcement. We've had it for many, many years, and there's different focuses each year. I'm sure some of you have seen the DUI checkpoints that we've done in the past, which were on hold because of COVID. Those are typically funded through the OTS grant. And then we also have other categories for that grant. Sometimes it's cell phone enforcement, but a lot of times it's bicycle and pedestrian enforcement. We actually just recently completed a grant application for a bicycle and pedestrian safety, which what that would do is provide overtime shifts for officers above and beyond just the officers assigned to the traffic unit to go out, and their sole duty would be to conduct enforcement activity for violations that impact bicyclists and pedestrians. So it's not like they're looking for a pedestrian crossing against a red hand or a bicyclist running a red light. Sure, that could be a enforceable violation. However, they're also going to be looking for vehicles that may be failing to yield to a pedestrian in a crosswalk, or rolling through a stop sign in an area that's frequently traveled by bicyclists and things like that. So the purpose of the grant, the state has recognized that COVID has resulted in an increase in bicycle and pedestrian traffic, and now they're allocating money in the form of grants to municipal agencies in order to go out and take enforcement action related to that. So we have applied for that, and part of that grant application process was an analysis of data related to bicycle and pedestrian safety. So I'm sure that Lieutenant Freeman can work with the sergeant from the traffic unit and the officer that applied for that grant, and we can gather some of that data up and then hopefully share some of it with you at the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Captain and Lieutenant.
All right. I have one thing I wanted to bring up. I know that in the January 12th council meeting, council directed that our commission receive a more formal report on the pallet shelter and kind of an update. And I know we touched on it briefly earlier, but I just kind of wanted to get some clarity about like when are we going to get that and who's going to provide that to us?
So Harbor Interfaith received the link today. I just double checked with our with City Hall, and for whatever reason, they didn't tune in. So it's not necessarily kind of like on us that they didn't show up. Tomorrow when I get into work, I can meet with Officer Turner, because he is a great resource. He works very, very closely with Harbor Interfaith and try to figure out kind of what happened, or maybe if there was some kind of mix up on the date or what the case may be. But I've been told from a few different people that they were supposed to show up today for this meeting, and something happened, which we don't know what happened. So I understand your frustrations with it. And on March, during the March meeting, I will keep on it to make sure they attend or they have a presentation. And if you guys do make a motion to put on the agenda, then we can do that as well. So yes, I don't know what happened today. They were supposed to sign on and show up to it, but I'm not sure why.
Let me jump in real quick again, Darren. Commissioner Suber, maybe I can shed a little bit of light on that. I think one important distinction to make is that the pallet shelter program is run out of the city attorney's office. It's not a police department program. So any detailed analysis or inquiries related to the pallet housing project would be best answered by a representative from the city attorney's office. We have no control over their ability to join the meeting. Obviously, they're not here tonight. So our focus is more based on our calls for service and the response requests that we get out there. We do work closely with Harbor Interfaith. Keith Turner works very closely with them, and Harbor Interfaith has a very important component in the pallet shelter. But again, that aspect of the relationship and contract with Harbor Interfaith is directed through the city attorney's office. So we are a resource to discuss the calls for service that we receive. However, the police department had no part whatsoever in the actual development of the pallet shelter project. We're just there to make sure that it remains a safe environment.
Yeah, and Captain Hoffman, I don't feel like I'm accusing like anyone sitting here right now of of not doing something. I'm just, well, I got to ask. I mean, I'd like to see our commission, have the involvement that it could have to be able to, I mean, this is why we exist, right? We want to be able to comment and have a say and represent the community and stuff. So I'm not trying to personally blame anyone who's sitting here right now. It's just that, if I don't ask now, it's not going to get asked as to what happened. So I appreciate the answer. And I guess on a related note, has anyone heard anything about whether or not we're going to go back to having monthly meetings, or are we going to go? Are we stuck with every other month? Do we have any information about that?
You know what, I ran into one of the, to Nils, Nierenheim, and I had made a comment to him that we were only meeting once every 2 months, and he said he had no idea. I said, we used to meet every month, and then we started meeting all of a sudden every 2 months, and sometimes things come up that I think we should be meeting every month, because 2 months go by and something has happened, and you've got 8 weeks between the two meetings. We're not going to be effective and not be able to give good recommendations if we have to wait that. So I'm not sure how we get ourselves back on the monthly meeting calendar, but I think it has to do with city council, because I think originally city council had agreed to allow us to meet once a month, and then they went back to every other month. And I don't know if it was budgetary reasons or not, but I would vote that we can try to get ourselves back into once a month meetings.
Second.
I mean, I guess we could, Commissioner Coig, that could be a motion to recommend to council that they switch back to monthly meetings. Is that kind of what you're going for?
I'm not sure who gives us the authority to meet monthly. Commissioner Kleinbaum has his hand raised. What do you know?
Of course, no, I don't know anything, but I'm just curious. You don't have the autonomy to decide the frequency that when we meet, the city council has to make that decision on our behalf? I wasn't aware of that. That's new to me.
Well, no, because I remember at one point in one of our meetings before he retired, we talked about the fact that we met every month. It was every 2 months, because when I first started on the commission, we met every other month, and then we went to every month. And then some people left that couldn't stay on the commission because they couldn't meet every month. And then we were told that that expired, and city council said we would meet every 2 months. So I don't know, does anybody have any information? Officer Glenn, do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure. I do remember when the meetings were every month, and then they turned into every 2 months. I know city council had, not city council, city hall had issues with a lot of the cancellations. So a lot of commissioners just would not cancel properly. They wouldn't, depending on the length of the meetings, it was a lot of stuff going on, I think, within the past, and not necessarily with this board, but in past. So I can talk to Eleanor and Vicky and figure out kind of who's in charge of doing that. But I do remember there was a switch. I don't exactly know who's in charge of it, or why, or very specific answers for you. But I can talk to Eleanor and Vicky about making the meetings once a month. Because I do agree that there are times, and it's just within the job as in general, that there are times that a lot of stuff goes on, and there's times that nothing or not much goes on, right? And so I think it was during a certain time period, and it might have just been all the cards played at one time that nothing was really going on. People were canceling, and all these things all together. So I can, like I said, I'll talk to Eleanor about that, hopefully next week.
Normally August is that 1 month where you wish nothing was going on, but that's all I'll say.
Yeah. So we can, if you want to make a referral, I don't know if that's the proper way to go about it. But I can also, like I said, I'll talk to Eleanor and figure out what happened and how we can get towards what you guys kind of want. And
So yeah, maybe we could do a referral to find out how we can get ourselves back to, if everyone's in agreement, it's a month. And it sounds like we all are from everyone. Make the referral to find out how can we get back to meeting every month.
I agree. Does anyone disagree? Any commissioner disagree?
But I tell you, over the years, it's vacillated back and forth. And I think Officer Glenn's right. You know, there's times where we're very busy, a lot going on, and then there could be months or weeks. It's just a slow period. And it's an anomaly of some sort. But it just, to me, without an agenda, and I mean a detailed agenda, other than when we had focus and things that we really wanted to do and get accomplished, it's very much worth meeting every week if we had to. However, in a case like this, I honestly, to bring out all of the city employees to have to stay late and to have all of this go on, the expense, and all of us being away, unless we have something really important to deal with, it's kind of one of those hit and miss. I mean, we've gone back and forth. There's an expense to it. And oftentimes there's no value to it, honestly. And, you know, doing it every month, every other month, yeah, I mean, we're touching base. But if we had something formal to do, I think there'd be no problem among us getting together whenever we had to. But it's something that I think actually you throw it out there, see if they can afford it, and see what maybe we can do it in a way that based upon what's coming up. We're going to have another meeting next month. Following month, we don't have anything going on. We'll wait a month. It may just work out that way and hopefully get busy. But the economics to it does cost a little bit. And then just having everyone out late, you know, everybody's worked all day, and to hear us every month, I don't know.
And I also think
myself every day.
just kind of like adding on to what you're saying too, it's a lot different when we do meet in person because obviously we do pay right now. The city does pay for the minutes secretary and the videographer, but when it come down to meeting once a month in person and when there's not much going on, and, you know, we understand why am I going to waste my time? Because there were some times that the meetings were 15, 20, 30 minutes, right? And so, you know, why would we all waste our time to go there for 30 minutes when it can wait? And like you said, if there's something very pressing, of course, I mean, you can always call special meetings as well. I would just have to look into exactly how that operates. But just throwing out my opinions out there. I think just being a part of this for as long as I've been a part of it, there's a lot kind of piled into these meetings every other month that you guys have kind of shared rather than the once a month and something doesn't happen and then something, you know, stabbing happens the next day, right? Or whatever the case may be. So it's a lot. It's very unpredictable, but like I said, you know, we can still make that referral to staff and then figure out kind of what goes into it and see what they say.
Thank you.
Okay, and then is there a motion to put a pallet shelter update on the agenda for our next meeting?
I would make that motion.
Second, Gall.
Perfect. And then roll call, Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Koig,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Your roll call is complete.
And then I have a question real quick, just so I'm up there. When you want an update on a pallet shelter, as the captain said, it's kind of under the control of the city prosecutor. Are you wanting us to relay to them that you want to update on the pallet shelter? And if so, do you know, like, do you have like what you want to update on, like what metrics or questions, so we know what we can forward to them?
Well, yeah, I mean, my understanding was that council had directed that we received kind of an update as to like calls for service there, or just generally what public safety impact has there been so far. That was my understanding of it. And
Right.
and I totally get that you guys aren't running the whole show over there.
Yeah.
And maybe, well, actually, I'm sure that the city prosecutor's office should also, or the city attorney's office, whoever should also weigh in on it. But to the extent that you guys have information about public safety impacts from that pallet shelter, it would be helpful.
Okay, no, that makes sense, and I kind of feel I just want to know, because sometimes we'll get questions, or Darren will get questions. Okay, so what do you want to know? And well, I don't know. You know what I mean? Just want an update. You know what I mean? So they might come back and say, we painted the interior of all the pallet shelters from white to blue. You know what I mean? But no, that's not what I wanted. So that's why I want to know if there's something specific that you wanted to know about it. But yeah, I understand, of course, the calls for service and impact on public safety. All right, that answers it.
Well,
Freeman. Oh, go ahead.
I could be a little more specific too. Like, I'd like to know how many people it's servicing, how many people have left so far, what other services people are getting, and just sort of how it's up and functioning, because this is the first one that I know of its kind. I've never heard of this before, and I'd like to know specific questions from the city attorney's office as to how are they overseeing it, and Interfaith. I think Harbor Interfaith can answer some of those questions as well. So those are things that I'd like to know.
The day-to-day operations, yeah. And again, one of those questions I can answer just from going out there, but again, you would wait for the full report because they say, no, Freeman was completely wrong. There's 15 of those shelters out there, and the 15 can hold up to 2 people comfortably. Probably you could put 4 actually in it. The way it's kind of designed, you could actually put 4 beds, 2 on either sides, top bunk, lower bunk. But right now they're only housing, because of COVID restrictions, only 1 person per pallet house. And so basically, every time I've gone up there, they've had the 15 pallet houses with somebody in it. And if it is empty, number 7 is empty right now, it's only empty for like 4 hours until Harbor Interfaith has that other person moving in there. But why they're moving out, why is it empty, how long are they staying there? I don't have those answers, but that's something that we hopefully get on that update at the next meeting.
I'd just like to get a reconfirmation if Redondo is doing this because of a federal court decision that kind of drove LA County to provide funds to Redondo to do this. And I know I think Councilwoman MD said that a few months later, we're going to be looking at having all the homeless population candidates go to a hotel in Wilmington. And I'd just love to kind of clear through all that with 1 or 2 PowerPoint slides. It sounds so complicated.
Yeah, Commissioner Gall, those aren't questions that would be appropriate for the police department to answer. Those are directly related to the creation of this program, which would best be directed to the city attorney or a representative from the city attorney's office. We need to limit the scope of the police department questions to the calls for service, the types of calls that we went on, the enforcement action that we've taken related to the actual pallet shelters being in place, and we need to limit it to that. As far as the funding, the creation, the purpose behind it and all that, that's outside the scope of what our role is. Basically it got established and we have a responsibility to maintain public safety. So for the most complete update related to the pallet shelters, it would be most advantageous to have a representative from the police department, a representative from the city attorney's office, a representative from Harbor Interfaith, and maybe even somebody from the county or something like that was involved in the funding. But we have to limit our involvement in the questions that we answer to the public safety aspect.
All right. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn? All right. Well, is there a motion to close item K, member items and referrals to staff?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Chair Super,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Coig,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Marinelli.
Aye.
Your roll call is complete.
All right. And any e-comments or anything along those lines?
No, sir.
All right.
Get the fire department to come by with a ladder, help me with this this battery I gotta put in now.
Yeah, please fix that before the next meeting.
I'm so embarrassed. It just stopped bothering me after a while.
That's pretty funny.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
All right, be safe. Take care.
Good job,
Aye.
Jim.
Thank you.
Good night.